Welcome to Women Kicking Glass, the only radio show on OC Talk Radio dedicated to empowering women to be the best leaders they can be in any endeavor they choose. Patty Grimm is our host and interviews top women in a variety of fields to help women grow, learn, and lean in together. Patty has over 25 years of experience in primarily male-dominated fields in senior-level management positions. Patty is the owner of Advantage Training Limited, an organizational leadership team training company. She recently released her new book for women called Quiet Women Never Changed History. Be strong, stand out, and stand up. With the subtitle, Let's Go Kick Some Glass.
And that's what we're going to do starting today for the rest of the year. I say we kick some glass every week here. What do you say?
I say we do. We've been doing it for over a year, and I think we need to continue kicking that glass. And I have an amazing guest today. I mean, I'm so excited. We met at a women's event, a training event, and then we really connected on so many levels. So I'm sure I'm going to mess up her name. I'll have her say it as well. But it's Beate Shanti.
Beate Gillette. Close.
Gillette.
Very
Beate
close.
Gillette. Yeah. Gillette. Incredible story, incredible woman. Whenever I post my shows on my LinkedIn or on my social media, I always say listen, learn, and lead. This show is one you really need to listen to. You need to learn what we're going to talk about, and you really need to lead and take action because we need to do something here right now. But she was actually $135,000 in debt and a single mom and forced to leave her home, and yet only 18 months later, she sold her image licensing business to Bill Gates. You all know I used to work for Microsoft for a multi-million-dollar deal. That's amazing. She's a results-oriented woman with an entrepreneur spirit, a proven track record of launching great companies. She's really focusing her life on supporting women and finding ways to promote women. She's creator of the Women's Code, which we're going to talk about that in her book, her signature system to educate leaders and companies to achieve gender equality. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of hot topics today and how to have balanced leadership because it isn't just up to women to fix what's going on right now in the news and things that are happening every day. It's up to everybody. I love that she's a respected speaker, trainer, mentor, and known as the gender decoder. I love that. And she's author of the award-winning book. I'm going to hold this book up, The Women's Code, which presents women happy world, happy woman, happy world. The way to move from overwhelmed to awesome, which is great. And stay tuned because at the end of the show, we're going to tell you how you could win a copy of the book. We have 3 books to give away. We're going to ask people to send me an email with a story about how you supported another woman. We'll pick a winner, and we'll send out 3 copies, 1 copy of 3 winners. So I think that's awesome. So thanks for bringing the book.
Of course.
Thanks for driving all the way from LA, too. So that was awesome.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. And I think it's so interesting because we're both trainers and we met at a training event to get more training.
As students of the event, right?
As students, exactly.
And, of course, we sat there going, oh, she shouldn't have done that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you take notes and you go like, I would have done this way or that way. But, she was fantastic. So, but it was great to meet you.
Yeah. So how did you get to where you are today? And how did you go from a single mom, $135,000 in debt, to now being an author and a speaker and a coach and a trainer? How did you get here?
Well, I went through what I call the decade of bad luck. And so I've been for 10 years, in the dumpster. So all the stuff that happens to other people happened to me. The lawsuit with an employee who betrayed me and started to set up her own business, which was my business just without me, with my key vendor, to the sleazy landlord that served a notice when I was on vacation, not on vacation, when I was actually at my father's burial in Germany, to, photographers cheating me out of my commission, so it was just this like constant influx of just bad stuff, bad luck.
Yeah.
And while I was going through these really hard times, and I'm sure we're going to talk, pull out a few stories here and there, I always thought to myself, I can hardly be the only woman who is divorced, who has a child that she has to raise by herself because my ex-husband is an alcoholic and a pathological liar, hardly the stuff that great parents are made out of.
Right.
And and I'm an entrepreneur, not by choice, but because I had to,
Right.
because I was unemployable and there were no jobs. It was a big recession. And so I figured, like, where is the information where other women are telling me or sharing how to do this?
Right.
And it's just too difficult. And that was the whole point of creating the Women's Code and, writing the book and going out and training and thinking about balanced leadership. It's like, how do we take what you and I, and you've been through the same thing,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we learn, and how do we share this with as many women as we possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I do what I do, similar to you, is that I have a passion to educate and empower women because I went from rock star to rock bottom, and I became, I would say, almost unemployable. And a lot of women I talk to who own their own businesses, if you really ask them why they started their own business, it's because they weren't happy with where they were working, and a lot of them because they feel there's not a place for them. So they end up starting their own businesses like we did.
Well, and in addition, add to that a lot of us are mothers.
Right.
And then we find out that, this is sort of the funny thing, and I always talk about that, is the big mystery of all times is when an organization finds out that women have babies. I mean, it's like
What,
shocking. Nobody knows what to do. When am I going to tell my boss? How am I going to tell my boss? And,
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, my goodness, she's having a baby.
Are you gaining weight? No.
Are you coming back? It's like sort of this whole idea of, wait, this is the most natural thing ever.
But
So-
nobody asks men those questions. There's a father. Nobody asks men, are you going to come back after your wife has a baby?
No, exactly. So this is also part of it, that we see that discrepancy on how we're being penalized and just punished for having kids, and then God forbid our children are sick and we have to take
Right.
time off. Now we're feeling like a bad mother. We're guilty at work. Hardly the stuff dreams are made out of, and then we end up figuring out how to do this on our own.
Yeah. So let's talk about the women's code, because you were sharing some really critical things. I think that every woman, we're going to talk about women and what men can do, because I think we were talking earlier too that the fact that we can't continue doing what we've always done. What we've done in the past isn't working. We're losing ground with women going into college. We're losing ground with women in STEM. We're losing ground with pay equity. But I guess one of the things is, let's talk about some of the factors of the women's code that you use to kind of pull yourself out, and then any stories you want to tell about how some of those things worked for you.
Exactly. So one of the most important things, or one of the biggest concepts of the Women's Code, is my concept of ego rhythm. So my daughter had gotten very sick, and she was coughing and coughing and coughing, and she was coughing primarily at night, which I thought was really strange. And then one night I had this weird intuition, that feeling that only moms have, and I'm like, you got to pick her up and put her in bed with you because something just wasn't right. And as I'm brushing my teeth, I'm hearing this sound that I just will never forget for as long as I live, and she's doing this. And then she stops breathing. And what do you do?
Right.
So I remembered, reading about, SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, and you try to wake him up. So I pick her up, I throw her over my shoulder, I run around in my house trying to wake her up, and finally she wakes up. Emergency room, and it turns out that she had asthma, which was induced by my ex-husband's smoking in the house.
Oh, so he was an alcoholic, smoker, and a liar.
Exactly. And of course he denies to this day that he smokes or has ever smoked or smoked in the house,
Right.
Which is just idiotic. And so I spent now the next 3 years like going from asthma specialist, reading everything about it.
Right.
And then suddenly my daughter grew out of it. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. So I spent all this time and this incredible effort in dealing with this thing, and then it just goes away. And then it dawned on me, really, that's what life is like. So there's a rhythm, a
Right.
phase, a wave. I call them rhythms, ego
Right.
rhythms, our own rhythms, where something happens that takes our entire attention on whether that's a love affair, whether that's your health, whether
Right,
that's a
right.
tragedy, or or something like what happened to me. And then, it goes on this crazy wave, and then suddenly it's over. But only to be replaced by the next thing.
the next wave comes
the
along.
next wave comes along. And so I developed this concept of ego rhythm, and I think you best describe is like a loaf of bread. So if you've ever been to Paris and you've
Right.
gone by one of those bakeries,
and
right?
you grab a loaf of bread and it smells so good. You don't even need butter.
Exactly. And you go like, I want to eat the whole thing all at once. you could, but is it practical? No. So you eat a little bit right now, you eat some with cheese later, you have some maybe a garlic bread, you dip it for the evening. So you can eat the whole thing, just not all at once. So I thought, what if life is just like that?
Right.
What if there is a slice? And instead of trying to have everything all at once, which is so typical woman,
Oh, yeah.
that we say, okay, what if I am able to set a main focus on the ego rhythm that I'm in right now? So if I have this great love affair and it's all about love and relationship, please give yourself permission to be in that relationship, because guess what? It's not going to be hot and sexy forever.
Right.
Sorry. And, and then you're a new mom and, you're freaking out because you're neglecting all the other things instead of really enjoying
The moment with your child.
the moment with your child, because then they turn out to be teenagers and they can't stand you. So you may as well enjoy the time while they love you so unconditional. But, so that was the idea of ego rhythm, is to, really teach women that we really get to have it all. It's just not all at once.
Yeah, and that the idea of that our life is rhythms or chapters or phases. I mean, there was a book out many years ago that was, I think it was called Phases, that we all go through phases in our lives, and that we should enjoy the phase we're in and figure out, if we're not happy with the phase we're in, what do we do to get out of it, but not to think about my whole life.
Yes, it's pretty much like that. So the idea specifically of ego rhythm is that I found that women, we always kind of want to have the crystal ball and say, where are we here today?
Right.
So I've developed this training, or, in the book, I'll take actually the reader through figuring out which rhythm that they're in.
Okay.
So that they know where they are today. And then I'll have some tips on how to initiate
Right.
some of these rhythms that we maybe really want to be in. You can't say that you want to be in a relationship ego rhythm if you're working 80 hours a week.
Right.
So you're going to have to make adjustments, obviously, to really actively go to that place that you want to be. But you can't work 80 hours and have a great relationship. You can have a relationship, but it's going to be a different kind of relationship.
It's the old something's got to give.
Something's got to give. Exactly.
And usually it's you. Or in my
And
case,
sleep.
it was me.
Yes, you and sleep, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I always remember saying sleep was highly overrated, right? Who needs sleep?
Who needs sleep?
So why did you write the book?
I wrote the book because I wanted, and sort of I had this whole idea of the concept, right?
Right.
There's no hardcover. It is a book designed to have in your purse. So it's small. I wanted it to be non-intimidating. I wanted to have short chapters. Short chapters so that you can leave them in the bathroom, so that when your partner, husband, goes in the bathroom, that there could be a chapter read in a sitting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so he could actually pick this up and go, I wonder where she is right now.
Exactly. And so what happens a lot is that men come to me and they said, hey, I read the book and it applies to me too. I said, well, of course it does. I said, but I can't write a happy people, happy world. That's too broad. So I had to make it specific about women. So the idea really was sharing the information and supporting women in this no BS, straightforward. And I think that's why we connect so well. Right. It's because you're also a no BS person. It's like, look, it's just the way it is. Okay, there's no question around it. If you want to get there, these are the things that you need to do. Yeah.
And in the book, there's one chapter called The Triple Paradox, right? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the women's success paradox. Let's talk about that for a minute.
So the success paradox is that when, we say we want the promotion, we want the big new client, we want the new car, we want the new house, we want the
perfect life, perfect cook,
perfect everything, right? And so then we work really hard and we get to the promotion, or we really add that new client. And then when that moment comes, we go like, I got that, but the other 20 things I wanted are still not there. So we just keep on adding more to the pile instead of like taking this moment and saying, wow, I did it.
You're so
pat on the shoulder, celebration, pop the champagne, go out, or have a green smoothie, whatever makes you happy. So the success paradox is that no matter how far we get, we keep piling it up, and so it keeps chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. We're never happy.
We're never. And here's the thing: I have this huge thing I'm talking about right now. In fact, I'm talking to 75 young women on Monday at a church in San Clemente, the Assist Teens groups and their mothers. about 5 ways to be an empowered woman. And one of the things I'm talking about is the women's perfectionism that comes from how we were raised.
Exactly.
Right? That we had to be perfect, and that no matter how much I accomplished in my life, I was a vice president of a big bank by age 29, I was never good enough for my dad. And the funny thing is, the difference between men and women, I'll use this example of, if you or I get up and we do this rock star presentation to a client, we win the business, we do this great presentation, and somebody walks off and says, "Gosh, you did a great job," and you say, "Yeah, but I forgot to say this."
Oh, yeah.
The man walks off the stage or walks out of that meeting and does the high five, the fist bump. I did it, toot my own horn. It doesn't matter how many mistakes they made. They don't have that self-critic in their head.
No, they don't. And then all they would say is like, well, and I even was able to like eliminate some of the unimportant information in the process and make it more concise and more powerful even.
Yeah, somehow they can fake it till they make it. And we have to make it before we can even think about faking it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That is kind of an interesting. I actually say fake it till you make it all the time. You know,
Yeah.
it's like one
Yeah.
of my things because
Yeah.
you know people sometimes get a little upset about the faking portion of things. But
Right,
but
right.
look, if you open a business and you put a shingle on the door, you have no clients.
Right.
You don't know if it works. You're
Right.
faking it until the first person comes in and buys something. So it's just a natural concept. You have to believe that you can actually do it.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I've had this happen, and maybe you have as well, when I speak to groups of women or men, doesn't matter, whatever groups I speak to, and I talk about some of the issues like the lack of pay equality, the fact that we're losing ground in women going into school, college or universities or going into STEM degrees. We haven't moved the dial on women's pay equity at all. In fact, we may have actually lost ground. But is this something, and I always have like a younger woman, like maybe a millennial or sometimes even a Gen Xer come up and say, I'm not experiencing these things. Is this something that's only happened to women like you and I that are a little bit more mature? I won't use the
And feminists.
and feminist.
Because we are difficult and opinionated. No, so here are the numbers on this. At the current pace, we will achieve gender parity by the year 2225.
I heard it was like 179
Yeah,
years, depending on what
yeah,
study.
yeah, exactly.
So-
So it's a crazy number.
Right.
And you know, and the numbers really show that when we start in an organization, the entry-level positions are 50-50. So if you just started a job, of course it's 50-50 because that's what the numbers show. So
Right.
you haven't experienced it. Where you're experiencing it is when you're looking at the women that are on top
Right.
and you go like, well, you know, they must be doing something that they're, you know, they're getting dumber as they progress in their careers because there's fewer women, but that's not going to happen to me.
Right.
And if younger women are not addressing this early enough and coming on board with women supporting women, they're going to be the next ones like us who are going to be sitting here in exactly 20 years
Right.
and are going to talk about the exact same things that the women that we thought didn't get it right 20 years ago were talking about because they were the evil, mean feminists.
Right.
And now we are the evil, mean feminists.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking about in the car driving up to the studio today, I was thinking about this exact conversation about, you know, we've done all of this, right? We did the sexual harassment training in the 80s and 90s. We did all the trying to fight for equal rights and the burn your bra and the whole movement that was out there, and nothing changed. So I guess my question to maybe both of us think about is, what are we missing
The men.
and what do we need to do different?
So we're missing the men. So I this is really part of the balanced leadership in the Women's Code that I've given so much thought.
Right.
So I'm sure that you got along with men just fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have
My
no
best friends were men, and little kid growing up all the way through work.
The women were the problem. But then you go through your life and you realize you don't have enough women friends, girlfriends,
Right.
because you missed that boat because nobody taught you how to make friends with women to support you because you thought that they were in your way. So what we're missing is we are missing the support from men because men say, yes, we support the movement, and then they do nothing.
Nothing.
Or they go to a training and they listen through the training and they go like, okay, check mark, and they do
Nothing.
nothing. Or like what we've talked about now with this Me Too movement, they see it going on, but they say nothing. So, you know, it requires men to actually find within that men's code and the boys club a way to support women without breaking the code to other men. And I think that's the problem. As long as we don't crack that, we're not going to see a change.
Well, it's interesting because I lived through the ending days of the good old boys club, right? Where women were not allowed in certain clubs or certain environments, but there was also this whole women's club, men's club thing at work, good old boys club, where they would go out to lunch or they'd go to golf, and women just weren't invited.
They didn't even think about
They
asking
didn't even
you.
think about asking us. to
Still
lunch.
happens today.
Still happens today. And now I did a show on the bro culture, the bro code, which Paul, my studio manager, we were chatting about it one day, and we were talking about the bro culture, or the bro code was all about a culture of bumping. So it's fist bumping.
Yes.
That used to be the high five, and it's a chest bumping, ass slapping, super competitive environment, not thinking to invite women. Or if men see something, they don't say anything.
It's the weirdest thing. And I think this is sort of the interesting part about what Matt Damon just did.
Yeah.
And why he got so much heat. So for anybody who doesn't understand that, maybe we should explain what happened here. So part of sort of Matt Damon just went out and said, hey, I don't even understand, why everybody's so angry at men. I'm a good guy. I'm not doing any of this. And I'm just by association being, scrutinized. And then this avalanche of just negativity unleashed over him.
Yeah, I know.
And the reason simply is that you cannot say, I see it, I know about it, but I don't say anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be a very honest and raw show, so I'm going to say something that may be a little bit controversial to tag on that. But you can't tell me that Matt Damon, George Clooney, and all the other male stars in Hollywood didn't know what was going on with Harvey Weinstein and all these young starlets. You can't tell me that Harvey didn't brag about his, and this isn't just in Hollywood, it's happening in the government, it's happening in business.
Everywhere.
You can't tell me you didn't know it was going on, but you chose to do nothing, and we've tolerated it for years. When I worked at Microsoft, every year we had our annual worldwide sales conference, 15 to 35,000 people, depending on the company and the year, that would all get together for a week, and it was business meetings in the day, but it was really party all night. And every year, there was some story about some executive that hooked
Who's
up.
married with 3 children.
Yeah, we had one married with 10 children.
Oh, my goodness.
And for I was there 15 years. For I would say 10 of at least the 15 years, it was simply tolerated. People after the event would say, hey, I'm going to use Paul as a joke. Hey, did you see that Paul, vice president of blah, blah, blah.
Was getting it on with Susan.
At a public event where people saw it. And nobody said anything until Steve Ballmer, now the owner of the Clippers, had the guts to fire one of his direct reports for having an affair with an employee, and the guy had 10 kids. And can you imagine going home and telling your wife you've just been fired from a major company for having an affair with somebody? So it was tolerated for years, and so people, they chose to do nothing.
Well, and I think this is really the quandrum that men are in, because the culture of the men's code dictates that a brother cannot stab a brother in the back, a brother cannot rat another brother out, for the simple reason that you might be in that position one day. Men know they're not perfect, where they will be doing something where they need the other guys to cover for them. That's it. That's it, in a nutshell. So how do you get around that and help men understand that the women we're talking about, those are your daughters now.
Yes.
Those are your daughters that are dealing with men who are 60 years old, that are lusting after your 25-year-old, putting their hands on her butt, on her breasts, touching her inappropriately, making advances. I see, I have a 25-year-old daughter, and the stuff that I see in front of me is just shocking. And I'm like, dude, I'm like right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Do you know who I am? Do you know
Do you even know who I am?
Do you know what I do?
I wrote the book on this. I'm going to slap you with it.
We're going to take a quick break. Before we take break, I want to make sure we know how to get in contact with you, where people can buy the book. Please give us your website and spell your name so people know how to connect with you. So
thank you. So you can go to thewomenscode.com, and that's women, plurals, WOMENS code, CODE.com, thewomenscode.com. My name is Beate Chalette, and that's a whole bunch of spelling. It's BEATE and CHELETTE. And you can get the book on the website Happy Woman, Happy World, or you just look it up on Amazon as an audiobook, as a
Yep.
printed book, or as an ebook.
Great. So we're going to continue this conversation, but we are going to take a quick break.
When it comes to pioneers in their respective industries, we all know the Apples, Starbucks, and Trader Joe's of the world. In the realm of recruiting, Decision Toolbox is the industry's best-kept secret, with 90% of their business from referrals and repeat customers. For over 20 years, Decision Toolbox's U.S.-based team of recruiters, sourcers, professional writers, quality personnel, and tech support has perfected a Six Sigma approach to talent management. No matter the size of the project, Decision Toolbox delivers incredible results. A cost per hire less than half of what contingency firms charge, with the winning candidate presented in an average of 14 days, all with a 12-month candidate warranty. With results like that, Decision Toolbox won't be a secret for long. Visit us at www.dtoolbox.com for more information.
All right, we're coming back, and I feel like I should just, shrink in the corner. I'm just a guy doing his job. Don't pay attention. I got to ask one question, though, and somebody tweeted this in sort of something like this, too. Okay, so there are a lot of good guys in the world. We're not all evil, bad people. Maybe we look the other way and support each other and bond and back each other up. But I think, how do you get men involved in the conversation? Because I can tell you from my own experience.
You've got a daughter.
I got a 25-year-old daughter, that the more men feel under assault, like any group, the more they do close ranks, the more they do back each other up, the more they do just shut down and turn it off.
They circle the wagons.
Circle the wagons, yeah. So I think, yes, there's a problem. I will say this, and I said this before the show. I'm stunned that we still have this conversation. I thought we fought this battle in the 60s and then the 70s. Didn't we win? Didn't everybody agree it's over? And then it's never over.
No, it's not.
What I think the two questions I have this half is, one, how do you get men involved? And two, what's different in this version of it? Is this just another passing fad and we'll be doing this 20 years from now? I hope not.
Yeah.
Well, number one, I think what you just said, Paul, is really important. Is like, what can men do that doesn't rat the brother out, that still supports women?
That doesn't violate the men's code.
And I think that sits at the essence of it. And, and you in your training and I in my training, it's really simple. You just use your brotherhood, the dude way. Say, dude, just let it go. Cut it out.
Inappropriate.
Yeah, it's inappropriate. Or leave her alone. Or let her finish. Or I want to hear what she has to say. Come on, stop hassling her. And that's it. When the bully doesn't have an audience, it stops. So it really is about, just stepping in. And instead of being completely quiet, just giving these cues on proper behavior. Or, dude, you're just going to get in trouble if you continue to go down that road. Or it's like, are you really you sure you want me to be doing this right now?
Yeah.
So I think that is sort of the voice of reason, because, I have a couple of very controversial YouTube videos on my YouTube channel. And the comments that I get, I mean, they're unthinkable words, and they're unspeakable words. And what people say about, somebody like me who speaks up about these things. And it's flabbergasting. And when the first one opens his mouth and makes a comment, it's like he gives permission to the next 50. The wolf pack, the pack mentality, to just go for the jugular. And then the comments get progressively worse, because nobody's in there says, guys, just cut it out.
Just cut it out. Well, it's interesting. I had posted on the hashtag Me Too, because I've been in those situations where I've had that happen to me.
I bet.
But I was somebody that kind of grew up very much of a tomboy, and so when somebody made an inappropriate comment, I would make a smart ass comment back, or I'd walk away or do something that was, to just get out of the situation. Some women can't do that. But it was just amazing to me that I was reading some of the posts on the Twitter post on when Naomi Watts stood up. And one of the posts was, "Oh, come on, sweetheart. Your career's failing, so this is the only way you can get attention." And then it started that avalanche. And then somebody did finally speak up and say this is inappropriate. And one of the things that really concerns me as a mom and a grandmother, yes, I am a grandmother, is what are the messages we're sending to our kids? Because they're seeing some of these things on TV, they're hearing about them, and how do you talk to kids about it? And so I did this presentation a couple weeks ago about, if you're got kids, how do you talk to them about it and say, when you go to school, every club as a little kid has rules, like no hitting, be respectful, various kinds of things, and that when people violate the rule, what happens? So I think we need better ways of
Timeout.
We need a timeout.
We need timeouts, exactly.
We need timeouts.
Yeah, I believe that, this resentment that Paul talked about a moment ago certainly is brewing. And what happens, and a lot of the not so good training is really the finger in your face, where it's like, you cannot do that, and you cannot do that, and you cannot do that. That does not work.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work. You can't go to the people who are in charge, who are men right now, and say, you need this training. And the only reason they agree to the training is because the legal department has said it's a liability issue.
Right.
Because we need to, in order for our insurance policy to be at a lower rate, we need to offer some sort of training so that we can show that we have done whatever's in our power of our company to undermine sexual harassment. It's coming from the legal department.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a risk reduction move. That does not work, because then you're not looking at what the issue really is, which is, we need to have a conversation about this, and we need to say, okay, here's the problem. We don't want men to violate the men's code. It's worked. We're not going in there. We don't want to be like men. But what we do want, we want to establish our own, the women's code, which is why I called it that way. That is not a version of the men's code. It is our own code.
Right.
Our own rules, where we stick together and where we as women not have an affair with a man who is married with 10 children, because it's an open secret that he does, and there's photos of his wife on his desk with his 10 children. So don't go there.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are also things that women need to do to support other women and not throw ourselves or each other under the bus to get an advancement, because that fuels what men have been doing. So that has to change.
Right. It was interesting. This goes back a number of years ago. I was teaching sexual harassment to Los Angeles Times truck drivers. So I just want you to picture that for a minute.
I'm really trying here. It's 5 o'clock. It's like very early. It's like, 4 o'clock?
Yeah. Teaching Los Angeles Times truck drivers about sexual harassment and having the conversations with the guys, and eventually saying, you know what? Here's what you can maybe think about in terms of whether or not what you're doing is appropriate or inappropriate. The first question is, if what you're doing was being done to your daughter or a young woman, a young girl you care about, would you still do it, and is it appropriate? The second one was, if your picture and the story of what you're doing was on the front page of the Los Angeles Times, would you still do it if it was public what you were doing? And and all of them, there were like 50 guys in the room, all men, going, we got it.
It's really remarkable, and I don't know if you found this, but I certainly have noticed that, is that men, for some reason, cannot make the correlation or find the correlation between that 25-year-old in the office that is so hot and sexy being somebody's daughter, and that could be your daughter that is going through the exact same thing in another office. That we actually have to spell that out and say to a man, don't treat any woman like you don't want your daughter to be treated. So treat all women like you want your daughter to be treated.
Right.
It's so simple.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
I can't help but ask one other question here, and that's what I hear a lot of men whispering about, quite honestly, as they talk about these things. Because I'm telling you, in the hallway the other day, 3 guys and I were sitting around going, man, what do you think of this? What's going to come out of all this stuff here? And one of the things that I don't want to start World War III here, but there is a complicit. Men act in a domineering, I can get away with it role. Part of it, though, the Harvey Weinstein's a role, because they did get away with it, not just from the guys in the office and the women that put up with it, but the women that went along with it. For every woman that got harassed and said, don't, I'm going to tell you there were women that said, hey, come on, Harvey, let's go. because I'll get a career, I'll get a part, I'll get something here. I mean, there were enough women that played into that, I believe, that fed his ego that he could do this with impunity.
Yeah, and I think the term you used was bullying. It really is a form of adult bullying, but I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying.
I mean, there are women that, like you said, don't have an affair with the guy that has the 10 kids.
Yeah.
Yes, some of it is you feel bullied into this, and I got to do it, and I don't want to do it. But what about, there are women doing this that want to do this. They see this as a way to advance.
Yes, there certainly are. And I think that for us women, who are now on this side of the game, that's a really hard truth to face to some extent, because it comes down to like your personal morals and ethics.
Yeah.
And so, there are things in my life that I'm not proud of, but I certainly learned my lesson out of it.
Yeah, same here.
And, and then you take this information and you say, well, if you had an affair with a married man, and, I did, and it was certainly not the proudest moment of my life, but I learned a very hard lesson. It was horrific. And I, in the end, like most women that go through this, had to deal with the fallout of it. But I learned the lesson, and that's why I'm like, I'm going to tell everybody, don't do this, because generally women, the affair doesn't win. And it's not good for your career, and it makes you look really horrible. People say terrible things about you. So it's just a bad idea all around.
Right.
So we as women also have to take the responsibility for our own actions. That is certainly true. But yes, some women use their bodies,
Their looks.
to get ahead. And in a way, we do that because it does give us that one advantage, that men just don't have, because we can make ourselves showstoppers if we want to.
Right.
And that sometimes is the attention you need to get this person to pay attention to you, to give you the meeting, to get your business, to that next level. Will he misconstrue that or misunderstand sort of politeness or a strategy?
A little bit of flirting
as an open invitation to take you to bed. Well, that I think is the miscommunication portion. And then, how do you get out of it if that's being read that way, but you didn't mean it that way?
It was interesting. I saw a story, and this would be very, very British, but there was a story about how to talk to people about this type of stuff with using a cup of tea. Right, so if I offer you a cup of tea and you say, no, thank you, I don't want a cup of tea, I should say that no is no. So if somebody really says no, it says no. And if somebody says, well, I might think about one, and then decides later, but at some point in time when you say, no, I don't want a cup of tea, no, I don't want to have an affair with you, or no, I don't want to go to this particular environment, that no should really mean no, and you should be able to back off from that.
Right, but then it's like with my mother. If you say to my mother, no, I don't want tea, she says, do you want coffee? And then if you say, no, I don't want coffee, she says, do you want orange juice?
You want a green smoothie?
I know, and she just goes through the whole menu of things. So I think that's also sort of a mindset to understand that there's a yes, a no, and a maybe. Yeah. And it is actually okay to ask for verification. It's like, don't mind me saying this, but can I just, this is how I'm perceiving this. Are you interested in me personally? Are you interested in a business proposal? And I think if we are okay with having just these straightforward conversations, then maybe we'd stay out of trouble a lot more.
Yeah, because I know there are a lot of men out there that are thinking, did I ever do anything out there? So let's talk about what we could do to create a women's, you've written the book, The Women's Code. So let's talk about some very specific things people can do to support other women. And you've probably had this happen to you, right? You're sitting in a meeting, men and women, but usually more men than women, and you bring up a brilliant idea, and it doesn't get heard. And then 5 minutes later, a man brings up the same idea, and it's brilliant. Brilliant, as my British friends would say. So from a women's code perspective, what could we do, and what could men do in those meetings that might support that woman who brings up that idea, or what could we do?
Well, first of all, it is really in the way it's being presented. So, a man or the woman could say, I really liked how you reformulated my idea. You actually made it sound even better than what I had originally said. Thank you for tagging on to what I just said 5 minutes ago.
Instead of just sitting there stewing because
oh my God, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah, say something.
Yes, exactly. Always say something. And I know that for introverts that's a little bit more difficult to do,
Right.
because because it takes sort of that moment of silence to think about it and before saying
Right.
something.
Right.
But if that's the case, then it's okay for somebody else in the room to say that and say, or the team leader or the meeting leader, there should be notes. And if there's notes, it's like, oh, yeah, you know what? That's exactly what Susan said. But, Susan said it this way. I'm going to make a note. I'm going to add that to Susan's idea because that could be just another way we could go about it. So it's just basic human decency and communication. So women supporting other women. So number one. One of the big problems we have with women not supporting other women, because we have 50-50 at the entry positions, and then by the time we get to CEO level, it's 2%
Right.
women and 98% men. So unless we believe that women are getting dumber, which I said earlier, which is of course ludicrous,
Right.
something happens in the middle that makes these numbers so disparaging. Now, if I believe that there's 50-50, I don't have to take all other women out on the path to trying to get there.
Right.
So the mindset is what needs to shift. If I believe that there's only 2% of women CEOs, only 13% of vice presidents, only 23% of directors available to me, I will have to take all other women out on the path there, because she is my direct competition.
She's a threat.
She's a threat. But if I broaden that and I believe that there really is 50-50, I don't have to take anybody but the worst candidate out,
Right.
And then the playing field's level. So that's first of all, it's a mindset shift. Second is the belief that we really a chain of women that reaches out to the left and the right. And men have successor planning. Women don't even know what the heck that is. That's why women clog up manager positions, because that's as far as they can go, and then they just hover over that for the rest of their lives.
Right.
But what
Right.
if there was life after manager, and and as you go to director, you pull somebody into manager. So instead of saying that BITCH wants my job, yes, because that way you can go
move
to
next one.
director.
Yeah, I remember I had one manager that told me that, as soon as you take a job, find your replacement and start training them so you can move on to the next level. So it's not a zero-sum game.
Exactly.
It's not a win versus lose kind of game and situation. And because I've had people talk about how competitive the world is. In fact, I was talking to a very senior level government woman who was speaking at a women's conference, and we had a side conversation because I was interviewing her for radio snippets. And she said to me, it's really easy to collaborate with other women when you're under 35 and you're only at a manager level. It's much harder when you get up to a senior level, and like you said, you're one of the 4%.
Exactly.
And Madam Albright, the former Secretary of State of the United States, said there should be a special place in hell
for women
who don't other women. Now, here's the thing that really got me. I don't want to talk politics, and I've seen several other people tag on that, but recently I've seen other people in the political parties use that same, there should be a special place in hell for this person not helping this person, whether it's Democrat, Republicans, whatever. But anyway, Paul, you have a comment that came in?
I have to go and open a little bit of a political door here with a comment that came in, and it's one I've asked myself here. When John Kennedy was the first Catholic to run for office, every Catholic, me included, had to vote for him, right? When Barack Obama was the first African American that ran for president, every African American, whether they liked him or not, said, we got to support this guy. It's breakthrough. When Hillary Clinton ran as the first woman, I really thought every woman, no matter what she said in the poll, when she got in there, she'd say, you give it to her, girl. You go, girl. Whether I like her or not, she's
Right.
the first one there, and we're going to push her over the top here. Why didn't that happen? Because women, particularly young women, went, I don't care if she's the first woman. That meant very little to them,
Yeah.
according to what the after polling.
And I think it remains sort of a big heartbreak to see that this incredible opportunity to see some equality has been, just squandered away.
Yeah.
And and let's not talk qualifications or politics or
whether you like her or not, she was the first, and
But-
you would have thought there would have been a push, a wave to get her over the top just to break that barrier.
Right.
Yes, and what instead happened is that younger women who are at the 50-50 level said, well, this doesn't mean anything to me because I still have so much time to get there. But,
Yeah.
you know, as
Yeah.
we said earlier, unless we make real changes, we will be having the same conversations in 20 years all over again.
Yeah.
Because unless something changes, nothing will change. And we can't just keep talking about it. Something, you know, we have to actually make an effort to say that women like you and me, and yes, we have wrinkles, you know, we are over a certain age. We are not the next hot young thing. We are not the ones that are coming out with a brilliant new idea that's changing the world. But what we do know is how it works.
Yeah.
And how it's always worked, because we've seen the first generation of feminists,
Right.
and feminism just means, you know, we want the same opportunities.
Right.
We've seen them go through. We had the same problems with them, and now yet we are here. So we are the generation of women who are now saying, please listen to us.
Yeah.
This isn't my problem. It wasn't Hillary Clinton's problem. It is the darn ferry train. It keeps going around and around and around and around, and it keeps coming back until you who are listening here today make a conscious effort to change and commit to it.
Yeah, and it's bigger than the Me Too. They just came out with something this week called Time's Up.
Yes.
That they've got a lot of people that have put a lot of money in. The National Council of Women Lawyers actually has put together a fund. They've got $13 million to help other women fight when they've been sexually abused or there's pay inequity. But it goes beyond the sexual harassment. It is the equity situation. It is, do you want your daughters or your granddaughters in 10 years or 5 years to be having the same conversation and the same frustrations that we're having today? Do we want to sit there and say, you know, Einstein said doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is a definition of insanity. So if we're on that ferry train, that merry-go-round, what are we all going to do to make a difference immediately? What can everybody do listening? What can every man do? And what can women start to do? Let's have kind of that conversation as we're starting to run out of time, and I don't want to end this.
I know.
I know. So what can we do immediately?
Okay, so number one, what we talked about, to sum it up, I do believe that men need to be taught and just understand that there's a difference between ratting a brother out and being not being part of the problem.
And
okay?
calling out an inappropriate action.
And calling that out, and you can do that at work, at home, at the tennis club, at the golf club, wherever you see it. It's just a quick little a quip almost to take care of it. For women specifically, you also have to figure out a way to speak up, and not in the finger in your face, you bad guys, you're doing this to me, but to say, I recognize that the way it's always been done that way, but I have a suggestion. How about if we, and come up with a solution to the problem, because the finger raising and the finger in your face and the calling just the bad things out doesn't work.
In fact, that raises their defense mechanism.
Oh my goodness, yeah, the wall goes up like a whole different level. So we have to keep sort of the defenses down. The third thing is we have to we want to have better conversations with men where we say, there's a lot of very smart men out there. So if Matt Damon, who is
a nice guy,
if he picked the right topic, the wrong angle. So now why not have a conversation with somebody like him and say, look, you've been in this industry. You've seen it happen. You didn't fall prey to one of those things. So what is it that you did that you can teach other men to participate in? So sharing of information without that constant fear that somebody's in power is going to get upset and not give us another job in retaliation, because that's, I think, why people don't do this, because they're afraid of retaliation. And then most importantly, read the book.
Read the book. Read the book. Read the book.
And especially the chapters on support, on how to get women to support you, because I cover that, on how you as a woman can ask for support the proper way, and how you can support other women. And it starts with a very simple sentence: how can I support you?
Yeah. And the same with other women. I've had situations where I'm going into a meeting, and a woman says, I'm going to present an idea. Can I get your support? Ahead of time, or during the meeting. If you bring up an idea, I'll say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not sure we all heard, your brilliant idea, And so being able to call those things out, and I think we have to change that. And I have to think about changing the conversation to a different level.
Well, that follows the old principle of how men lead. You know, it's about finding partnerships and alliances, and a lot of that stuff is done ahead of time. So when you go into that meeting, don't think for one moment that the man has not gathered his support before he even went in there.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, he's giving the cue, well, John, that was a really good idea. Yes, exactly. John, I agree, says Scott. This is all done beforehand. So you do, as a woman, have to figure out on how to be more strategic about presenting your ideas so that they're being heard. And that is, part of just not being defensive and upset and sensitive about it, but to say, what can I actually do to fix this?
Yeah. So one last thought. So what is like the one thought or one thing you want to leave the audience with that can really help change the conversation, help women kick more glass, whatever it is, kind of what's the one thought? And then please, if you could, again, go through the how we get in touch with you, how we get your book, and then I'll tell people in a minute how to send me an email to get a copy of the book.
Thank you. So the big thing I want everybody to walk away with is that there are two different leadership ideas. There's the male leadership style. That's for men. That's how men do it. It's a good leadership style. We know exactly what it is. But women are not trying to infiltrate the male leadership style and then being judged for not being the proper guy. We want our own leadership style.
Our own code.
Our own code where we can say, that is a classic, excellent woman leader. So we want to have these two leadership styles or ideas side by side. Not underneath, not on top, not infiltrated, side by side. So that we can say on a leadership scale, I call it the sliding scale of leadership attributes.
Right.
There's male and female attributes, and now every leader can pick from the whole scale.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we get in touch with you? And then how do we find out more about your webinars and things that you're doing and broadcasts and things? So tell us all about how we find you.
Okay, wonderful. So again, my book is Happy Woman, Happy World, and you find it on Amazon, or you just go to the website happywomanhappyworld.com. It's an award-winning, bestseller, the whole 9 yards. I've put actually a lot of effort in this. So, and it is really a good book. You can find out about the Women's Code by going to thewomenscode.com. My name is Beate Schillett. That's BeateChelette.com. You can look on my website. I, promote all the events and interviews where I am at. I also have a bunch of free gifts for you. So if you want to go to thewomenscode.com/Beates-free-gifts, you can get, the concept of egorithm I talked about and read 2 free chapters of the book.
Okay, and finally, this is Patty Grimm, and you can send me an email to pattygrimm@live.com, and that's PATTIEGRIMM@LIVE.com. And if you send me an email and tell a story of how you've supported another woman, we will give three people copies of the book, The Women's Code, presented by the Happy Woman, Happy World, How to Go from Overwhelmed to Awesome. This has been an incredible conversation.
Has it been an hour?
It's been an hour, and we could talk for 12.
I know.
So this has been great. And everybody out there, I want to end with, make sure that you listen, you learn, and you lead side by side with men. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Women Kicking Glass, the only radio show on OC Talk Radio dedicated to empowering women to be the best they can be. Listen each week or download the podcast at patty.grimm.podbean.com. To reach out to Patty to schedule a speech webinar or to learn more about her leadership and team training, contact Patty at pattygrimm@live.com for more information about her company and her books. Have a kicking day.
When it comes to pioneers in their respective industries, we all know the Apples, Starbucks, and Trader Joe's of the world. In the realm of recruiting, Decision Toolbox is the industry's best-kept secret. With 90% of their business from referrals and repeat customers. For over 20 years, Decision Toolbox's U.S.-based team of recruiters, sourcers, professional writers, quality personnel, and tech support has perfected a Six Sigma approach to talent management. No matter the size of the project, Decision Toolbox delivers incredible results. A cost per hire less than half of what contingency firms charge, with the winning candidate presented in an average of 14 days, all with a 12-month candidate warranty. With results like that, Decision Toolbox won't be a secret for long. Visit us at www.dtoolbox.com for more information.
Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of OC Spotlight, the only show that brings to light the issues and organizations shaping our community. And today we're privileged to have with us Public Affairs for OC Talk Radio, Claudia Shambo. Hi, Claudia.
Hi there, Paul. Welcome back, everybody, to OC Spotlight. This is the December 15th, 2017 edition, and today my guest is Malcolm Warner, Executive Director of the Laguna Art Museum, here to talk about the current Pacific Standard Time participating exhibition now at the Laguna Art Museum for everyone to take in while they have a little time off over these holidays. The name of the exhibit is California Mexicana, Missions to Murals, 1820 to 1930. Malcolm Warner has been with the museum now for nearly 6 years. Previously, he was Deputy Director at the Kimball Art Museum, Fort Worth, Texas, Senior Curator of Paintings and Sculpture at the Yale Center for British Art, New Haven, and Curator of European Art at the San Diego Museum of Art. As well, he has curated exhibitions at the National Gallery of Art, Washington, the National Portrait Gallery, London, at Yale and the Huntington Library Art Collections, and the Botanical Gardens in San Marino, California, the Walters Art Museum, Baltimore, and the Museo Thyssen-Bornemisza in Madrid. He remains the leading authority on the British pre-Raphaelite painter John Everett Millais, and as a long-term project, he's preparing a catalogue raisonné of the artist's works. Malcolm Warner is here to talk about the cornucopia now at the Laguna Art Museum, California Mexicana, Missions to Murals, 1820 to 1930, in its final weeks as a part of this LA Basin-wide Pacific Standard exhibitions. Today's interview is a teaser to talk about what's on view and some of the events on tap, which include the around the corner December 21, for people to start writing these things into your calendar. So I want to welcome Malcolm Warner, who comes from his corner office in Laguna Beach. Welcome to OC Spotlight.
Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, wonderful. Congratulations on this maximal effort, years in the making.